I can't quite work out if getting my children through school exams, potty training them, or teaching them both how to drive a car was the most stressful thing ever. I remember the days of dropping one of my daughters off at her ballet lesson, and I remember watching through the small window of the door. She looked so disinterested, so bored, and really scared. She had no friends there, and I felt like bursting into the room and just taking her home with me again. Or remember that time when I spent, I think it was about £250 on hockey outfit, a stick and trainers for her only to get hurt in the first practice match of the season. And then she just wanted to give up, saying she wasn't really that into sports. Or my youngest daughter landing the main part in the school play, only to get stage fright and not appear from the castle as the main princess character. Raising a child into adulthood. It's one of the most hardest yet most rewarding journeys we'll ever experience. It begins with sleepless nights, tiny hands, and somehow, in what feels like a blink, you're watching them pack their bags for university or start their first job. Today, I want to walk through that journey with you, from the early years through school into young adulthood. The highs, the lows, the pressures, and the love that just keeps it all going. In this video, I want to share with you today my experience as a dad, what I felt like at the time, what I could have done differently, and how I feel now both my children have grown up. Was all that stress and pressure really worth it? Was getting into the right school, getting the top grades, falling out with their best friends, or failing multiple driving tests really worth the stress? Let's find out. So we'll start with the early years. Those first years are so magical. I remember holding my daughter in the hospital for the first time once my wife was getting stitched up after having an emergency C-section. All the time that I remember getting up 78 times in one night to teach her not to get out of her own bed and come into our bed. It was exhausting and so stressful. And I'm the dad here. Mums, you are incredible. You're learning now to be a parent while trying to stay afloat, juggling work, money, and the endless responsibilities that come with it. It now seems like a distant memory, but I wouldn't swap it for the world. Those first words, the laughter, the first steps, it was so magical. You start to realize that parenting isn't about being perfect, it's about being present. Kids don't remember if the house was spotless. They remember bedtime stories, playing in the park, holidays, or your voice telling them everything will be okay. Mummy and Daddy are here. Their faces lighting up on birthdays, Christmas mornings, learning how to ride a bike for the first time, scoring a goal, or simply telling you a joke. That's what builds connection. I do remember our marriage at the time was so stretched, and I would say definitely the hardest time to cope, especially for me, as I do like my sleep. It wasn't perfect by any means, but I did make sure that I was around as much as possible and reading books to them at night, taking them to the park, taking them to swimming, gymnastics. I really excelled in that, and it just gave my wife an extra few minutes to rest and recuperate. But if you are at this stage right now and you're feeling stressed or overwhelmed because your child isn't walking yet, isn't talking yet, learning about shapes and colours, or they might not be the best at sports, please don't stress. They all learn at different stages. And let me tell you, my kids were never in the top half academically at school. They never excelled at sports or drawing or playing an instrument. But as you'll find out later, they did okay. So that brings me on to the school years. School begins and suddenly the pressure ramps up. Homeworks, grades, tests, and that constant voice saying, results define success. But school is more about than just marks. It's where they learn to make friends, handle disappointment, and discover who they are. This is where they start to form their own personalities and growth. I can't tell you the amount of times that I wanted to grab hold of one of their so-called friends, a bully, or even some of the teachers. But learning to put hard work in and work together is so valuable here. Don't sweat the small stuff. Failed exams only make them learn and shape their future work ethic. I can't tell you the amount of times I hear about kids failing miserably at school only to go on and have successful careers. I failed at school so many times. I never got the grades to get into college or university. But I'd like to say that I've done pretty well with my life so far. As parents, we want them to succeed, to be happy, to fit in. But sometimes the best thing we can do is let them know that trying matters more than perfect scores. This is only my opinion here, but tasting failure now and again, it just makes them stronger and more resilient for the future. Absolutely help and guide them, but they do need to learn to work things out by themselves. The teenage transition. Oh man. And then comes the teenage years. A mix of chaos, independence, periods, boyfriends, emotion. Suddenly they want freedom to get out, to have a chauffeur 24/7, to get a job, to fall in love. Where do I begin here? It's funny actually, because this is the time when you feel least loved, least respected after everything you've done for them. Because as parents, we realise we're no longer in control. We just have to trust that everything that we've taught them will guide them and guide them to make the right choices. I remember at the time being told, "You don't know anything, Dad." And now years later it's, "Dad, can you just go through it again one more time, step by step?" They'll make mistakes, we'll worry, but that's how both sides grow. Just to add another thing here, if this is you right now, be prepared to answer questions like, "Dad, how much do you earn? What grades did you get? Can you pay for this? Can you just walk 20 feet behind me, please? I'd like you to pick me up just round the corner. You drive like a granny. Don't talk to any of my friends. Dad, can I borrow your razor? I hate you. You don't understand. That's it. I'm leaving." Technology, drinking, and social pressure. Phones, social media, they've changed everything. I mean, we didn't grow up with TikTok or Snapchat, so we're learning right alongside them now. Add to that the realities of drinking and vaping, online comparison, and life as a teenager gets so complicated. But communication is the key. If kids know that they can talk to you without fear or judgment, that's where trust grows. Sometimes the most powerful words we can say are, "Hey, I'm listening." We have had our own fair share of issues, and yes, it's hard, it really is, but I always made sure that if my girls ever needed me, I was always there, no matter what. They knew I had their back. Now, most of the time, they'll confide in their friends before you anyway, but now and again, they'll seek out your help and guidance. Be patient as parents, because irreversible damage can be done here if you don't stop and remember. They're still learning, still developing, and knowing how life works. Remember at all times, you're the adult here. And then we're going to move on to becoming young adults. Oh, where do I start? Okay, then one day they're packing their bags and you're standing there remembering when they needed you to tie their shoelaces or brush their teeth. parenthood becomes a series of like small goodbyes, but also a collection of proud moments, watching them stand on their own 2 feet. I know it's a bit corny to say this, but you realize that your job was never to keep them forever. It was to help them fly, to mold them into young, hard working, respectful adults. And lastly, I want to finish on the parent's journey, us. Being a parent, it doesn't stop when they turn 18. It just changes shape. You become more of a guide, a quiet voice they know that they can always come back to. And for young adults, I get it. Life's messy, it's fast, it's full of pressure, and you'll make mistakes. Question yourself. But that's okay, because growth always looks messy at first. But over time, you'll get more experienced about the decisions you've made and hopefully learn from them. And to both parents and adults, you're both learning, you're both growing, and you're both doing your best. So I did say that I wanted to talk about how I felt and what regrets that I had. Well, I've been so blessed to be around my girls at every stage of their lives. And although I did a lot of school runs, swimming lessons, dance lessons and piano lessons, I organised birthday parties and Christmas games, I really regret not helping my girls with their schoolwork. And there were times where I just wasn't around when they were really going through certain periods of their life, real tough times. I used to expect amazing results at school, both in the classroom and on the sports field, to behave perfectly and to always surround themselves with the right role models. But I didn't really want to help with any of that. I just expected them to do it. I used to use their successful friends as a benchmark, and I didn't really get it at the time that my children were unique and they were going at their own pace and they didn't want to follow the crowd. So what I'm saying to you here is, my girls failed so many times in so many different ways. I never felt that they put the effort in, that they ever helped around the house or really pushed themselves to be the best versions of themselves. But what I can tell you now is that they both got the grades to get into a great university. They are both on an amazing path to having great careers. They're very mature, they're grounded, they're healthy and hard-working young adults. All those failures, all those tears of not getting into the top schools or getting top grades, being great at sports and looking amazing all the time, it didn't really matter in the end. Do you know what matters? Being happy, being loved, transforming from being a child into an adult with great foundations, caring for others, being in a position to help others less fortunate than themselves. Raising kids into adults isn't about control, it's about guidance, it's about patience and love and learning to let go one chapter at a time. So if this video spoke to you, share it with another parent or young adult who might just need to hear some of these things. And remember, none of us get it perfect. We just keep showing up together. So thanks very much for watching. And please, if you have time to watch any of my other videos, I'd really appreciate it, as I'm obviously trying to grow this channel and I really want to help as many people as I can with their lives. So take care, God bless, and I'll see you in the next video. Thanks.